at the later on.
So from that, result, or from that survey, do you feel that the banks are doing enough in terms of broadening out their horizon, widening out their scope, to try to understand what it is and how it is that they can play a very significant role in building the real sector, or lending to the real sector?
Well, the story about the real sector has been coming up for a very long time, and we think we are not going to likely see that even now, because look at it, the yield environment is fantastic at the moment. Buying treasury bills, you can just make as much as 20% within a year on an annual basis. So which businessman wants to create a risk asset with all the troubles, or at an average rate of about 26 to 27%, maybe at best 30%, with all the attendant risk, when you can easily make smart money by just deploying them into government security? So the yield environment is not going to support aggressive loan growth. Remember, a lot of these banks have had their fingers burnt, so they've got to be careful.
So, taking a look at still that your survey, and you talked about it when we started this conversation, FX volatility and liquidity concerns, dampened appetites. In your analysis, how much did this affect the sector's profitability?
Well, in 2013, 2014, before we had these constraints with foreign currency, we've had a lot of the banks booking non-interest income, particularly foreign currency income, because of their transactions in the forex market. But of course, we had rigidity for some time, for about 18 months before the flexibility returned. And even with the flexibility that we have now, we still have some constraint with liquidity. Of course, what we found out from customers was that they had issues doing a lot of their foreign currency transactions. Of course, because the banks, were constrained, a lot of regulations and policy flip-flops that we had at that time affected even the customers in carrying out their foreign currency transaction. But generally, what we think may be lacking right now is that, of course, from the regulator perspective, the regulators are trying as much as possible to sort of bring back the good days in terms of their policy pronouncement. But we think that the much that needs to be done has been kind of done. And what we have left is for sentiment to generally change in the industry. And that is why we titled our banking sector report that will be released later, Searching for Investor Confidence, which we think is the bit that needs to be done in order to reinstate the economy into its proper place.
Robert, I'm going to put you on the spot.
Yep.
We're talking about MPC meeting, which is just around the corner.
Sure.
Are you expecting any positive policy sentiments? What kind of pronouncements are you expecting from the Monetary Policy Committee that you think will endear or engender investors' confidence?
Well, for us, reinstating investor confidence is not just an assignment for the Monetary Policy Authority. It's going to be both Monetary and Fiscal Policy Authority. And in our report, we've outlined a number of these points that need to be made, one of which is the harmonization of fiscal and monetary policy. From the monetary policy side, we perhaps do not expect much, because the much that needs to be done has been done. There's flexible exchange framework, which has some of its issues, and the committee has also tried to make the interest rate environment attractive by hiking MPR to 14% at the last meeting. So from their side, maybe there is little or nothing more expected, particularly for the next MPC meeting. We do not think that there will be any major shift in policy at the next MPC meeting. But like I said, it's a flurry of policies which cuts across both the monetary policy and the fiscal policy authority, plus a lot of structural shifts, structural changes that are required within the economy, which we have highlighted in our report. I'm not permitted to say some of those things.
Robert,
right now.
So you just keep giving us tidbits, lay the crumbs for us to follow. But no problem. Yeah. We follow the money, so we'll follow those crumbs for you.
True.
But then, still talking about the regulator, very recently, and I think that's the first time in as many years, the central bank licensed 2 more banks,
Yep.
or there are about 2 or 3 more banks, and kind of making the space more interesting. Did you cover that? Did you cover those new banks in your survey?
Well, what we did, maybe not particularly related to the survey, but in the report itself, we cover a number of unlisted banks in our report. But the new banks that were licensed were not particularly covered, because for you to do an effective coverage, you need sufficient information, including booking management meeting, which time did not allow us to do.
Okay, so
Yep.
but Robert, with this new move by the CBN,
Yep.
do you see this as the beginning of new licensing rounds by the CBN?
Well, we think the industry is. We can't say the industry is saturated, and to the extent that the central bank keeps licensing new banks coming on board, we just hope that the old days when we used to have a lot of banks which have minuscule capital and then do not have the capacity to finance big ticket transactions do not return. But what we would think is that yes, there are new opportunities to be tapped into, and to that extent, if we have newer banks coming on board, perhaps we're going to have some M&A transactions coming up much later if these banks find it difficult to cope within the competitive environment, because the tier 1 banks, which are the big banks, are kind of crowding out the environment at this time.
All right, Robert,
Yep.
thank you so much for joining me on the program this morning.